Mr. Bridges' ties with the leading members of the Communist Party in the world, and the fact that Mr. Goldblatt is identified continuously and repeatedly as an important member of the Communist Party, and he's the Secretary-Treasurer of this local with whom you've made this alliance?
I don't know if Harry Bridges is a Democrat or a communist, or whether Goldblatt's a communist, and this is not the issue behind the question of transportation unity. The workers have so elected them under the free democratic rights of America and under the Taft-Hartley law. And they have filed for 10 years, according to Goldblatt's testimony, non-communist affidavits.
All right, would you
if you think it's wrong, you investigate that.
Would you allow, as a Teamster official, a man who was a communist, who was elected by the membership?
We don't have any communists in our Teamsters. Just a moment, please, that I know of. But if the membership saw fit to elect a man who had been tagged, mind you, as a communist, who disavowed the fact that he was a communist, and no proof was presented under our Constitution of the International Union, we would not be in a position to dislodge him from his elected position. Neither would the courts let us do it. However, the provision you're looking for in our Constitution is very clear. And it talks about the question of communism. I helped write the article, so I know it. You don't need to read it to me.
Right.
And I say to you, though, that I'm talking about tagged individuals, and Bridges and Goldblatt are tagged.
Oh, Mr. Hoffa.
Tagged.
What do you mean? There's no question about Mr. Goldblatt, although there can be a question about Mr. Hoffa. There's no question about Mr. Goldblatt.
Oh, wait a minute. Just a moment. Don't say anything about a question about Hoffa. There is no question about Hoffa, and don't you say that either. Don't you say that I'm a communist, or even affiliated with one. You said that enough around this country, and I want the American press to know that I resent the fact that there is any inference that I'm a communist, that I'm associated with or controlled by communists, and don't use this as a sounding board for headlines for that purpose. And I appeal to the chair that that be taken out of the record, and that nobody cast any aspersions on my loyalty to this country.
Just a moment.
I object to it, sir.
Just a moment. Read back.
Well, I'll straighten the record out. I was talking about Mr. Bridges and Mr. Goldblatt.
Well, don't put me in their class, then.
Well, did you put him in there, Clint?
No, I just said although there might be some question, and I said Mr. Hoffa instead of Mr. Bridges. I meant, although there might be some question about Mr. Bridges, there is absolutely no question about Mr. Goldblatt. And evidently you agree the same thing, Mr. Hoffa. Wait a minute. Or otherwise you wouldn't have said, don't put me in their class.
Don't you put me in a class that they're tagged. That's what I said. And I say tagged. But I want to have, if you will, sir, the record cleared that there are no aspersions on me being associated with, controlled, or any part of the Communist Party in America.
Well, all right. As of now, there is no such implication.
That isn't correct, sir.
Just a moment.
Wait,
Just a moment now. If there is, we'll read the record back and straighten it out.
Thank you, sir.
Is there any such implication?
an alliance with Mr. Harry Bridges and Mr. Goldblatt.
And you're going to get bitten soon, too, then.
And the fact that they have been associated with the Communist Party.
Well, then
and
you'll
that
be
you've made
sued,
an
same as
alliance with
Buffalino
them.
sued you.
And that you've made an alliance with them. And I think it's a very critical situation. Now, I would...
Did you receive any of the fee that he obtained, the $40,000 that he got in that case, directly or indirectly?
Absolutely not. And you know it.
You had been in business with Mr. Matheson, had you not?
With my own money.
Yeah, but you had been in business.
With my own money, yes.
Do you have any evidence of the $20,000 in cash that you put into the business?
I don't need any evidence. You'll take my word for it, as the Internal Revenue has.
Could you describe a little of it, Mr. Hoffa?
No, sir, I cannot, and I don't care to try and recall back my entire lifetime since I started working at the age 17 as to how I accumulated money or how I spent it to finally arrive at having $20,000 I could afford to invest and finally lost.
Could you answer, was it in cash that you put it in?
Yes.
Do you have any record of it?
No.
Would you tell us where you got the cash?
I accumulated it.
From your salary?
From whatever investments I had or salary or income, but it was accumulated.
Did any of this come out of the winnings that Mr. Brennan made at the racetrack?
Very easily it could have.
Could I ask you whether Mr. Brennan is still winning at the track?
I believe he is. I hope we have luck this year. We haven't finished yet.
How much have you turned over to him to gamble?
So far this year, nothing. You kept me too busy.
How much has he won for you? How much has he won for you? None
this moment, I haven't been in the question of the trying to make any money on horse racing this year yet. Been too busy.
But in other words, as I understood it, he had won $64,000 in cash.
Well, that's not hard to believe.
That's up till 57.
Go
Then
out to the track.
And now, what about since '57? How much has he won in cash for you since then?
I don't know. I don't have the records
You ever been
here.
to the track with him?
Oh, I go maybe once a year, once every 3 years.
But he usually goes.
That's right.
You give him the money,
That's right.
and he bets
I
where he
did.
wants
I
it.
haven't this year.
I see. Well, now you couldn't.
I don't believe I did last year, by the way, either. It was pretty busy here, too.
No, that's right. And it's possible that this $20,000 might have come out of the money that Bert Brennan won for you at the racetrack.
Conceivably.
But you couldn't tell us any other source.
I have no basic figures of income per day, per week, or where it came from. I file my Internal Revenue report. I'm sure they check it.
Could you ask?
And so
Could you
far
tell
as
us?
I know of, they haven't contended it.
Could you tell us what? Would you feel that it was an unreasonable question if we asked you how much cash you have now?
I wouldn't answer it.
You wouldn't care to answer.
No.
It. You wouldn't care to tell us the sources of it either,
No.
would you? I've never been completely convinced, Mr. Hoffa, to be frank with you, that Mr. Brennan did win this money at the racetrack.
Why don't you ask him?
I did, and he took the Fifth Amendment.
Well, maybe he has a reason to, then, Mr. Kennedy.
I think he might have a reason, but you suggested we ask Mr. Brennan. Mr. Brennan then took the Fifth Amendment when he was asked the question, and I've never considered either that that was a satisfactory explanation of the cash that you had, or that these several people, such as business agents, who themselves had to borrow money in order to survive, that they loaned you $2,000 in cash without any note and without interest.
Thank you for reviewing the testimony.
Does it suggest anything to you, Mr. Hoffa?
Doesn't suggest anything except the fact that you're trying again, as you have many times in this hearing, to bring a headline about or to embarrass Hoffa. That's all.
No, I'm attempting to give you my reaction as these hearings come to a close as to where this cash might have come from.
Then you
And
ought to
I do
read the
not-
record.
I want to make it clear for the record
Then
that I
disprove
cannot
what I
accept,
said, then.
that I cannot accept the explanation that this was won in this casual way at the racetrack by Mr. Brennan, in view of the fact that Mr. Brennan takes the Fifth Amendment when he is asked how he won the money.
Then you disprove it.
It's extremely difficult because you do deal in cash.
And I'm going to continue.
And you're going to what? I didn't hear the end.
I'm going to continue, sir.
Well, I think that's an interesting way to conduct your affairs as the head of a large union.
I think it's an American way.
You deal in cash?
Any way you have, as long as it's money that is subject to being able to put into trade and is paid income tax on as gainfully earned.
how much cash do you have now, Mr. Hoffa?
I don't know.
You haven't got any idea how much cash you have?
This is not the Internal Revenue. I refuse to give them a net worth statement, and I do not believe I'm required to give it here.
Do you have $10,000 in cash?
I don't know.
$100,000?
Senator,
Witness,